Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 138. Shizun is probably going to beat me to death. Chu Wanning lifted his eyes and looked at Mo Ran coldly. Someone is looking for you. Huh? Who would be looking for me at this time? At that moment, Mo Ran's eyes were focused on Chu Wanning. He had long forgotten what he had said and done with the villagers. She's the one who was singing during the day, Chu Wanning said casually. She's probably the prettiest girl in the village. Is that so? Why do I feel like all the girls in this village look the same? Chu Wanning did not say anything at first. Then he said, I know that we haven't seen each other for 5 years. When did your eyesight got bad? Chu Wanning's tone was flat, but the moment Mo Ran looked up, he saw a hint of a smile in his eyes. He seemed to be in the mood to joke with him. Mo Ran could not help but feel flattered. His mood instantly brightened quite a bit. The maiden named Lingair carried a green cloth bag embroidered with white flowers. She shouted towards Mo Ran's room, Cultivator Mo. Cultivator Mo. I'm here. Suddenly, a man's deep voice sounded behind her. Lingair turned around and saw Mo Ran pulling aside half of the curtain. He leaned against the door and smiled at her. Miss, it's already so late. What's the matter? Lingair was first shocked, then delighted. She immediately went over. Luckily, you're not asleep yet. This is for you. I asked third and for it. I told you about it in the afternoon. Please take it and try it. As she said this, she handed him the cloth bag in her bosom. Mo Ran opened it and saw 3 small clay jars inside. What's this? Herbal ointment. Lingair said enthusiastically. She smiled and pointed at her own face. You said you were bitten by a mosquito in the fields this afternoon. Ah. Mo Ran finally understood. Then, he felt a little embarrassed. He had casually made up that excuse, but this girl naively believed it and really gave him herbal ointment. He could not help but feel a little embarrassed. The villagers of Yuliang village were too simple and honest. But the bite shouldn't be that bad. Lingair suddenly stood on her tiptoes and carefully observed Mo Ran's face. Her smile became even brighter. I can't see a mosquito bite on your face. Mo Ran coughed dryly and said, well, I'm a cultivator after all. Lingair clapped her hands and laughed, you people are really interesting and so funny. If I had the talent, I would also want to be cultivator. It's a pity that I'm not fated to be. The two of them chatted for a while before Mo Ran thanked her and returned to the house with the herbal ointment. Chu Wanning had already switched seats and was sitting at the table, leisurely flipping through the books left behind by Mo Ran. When he heard the noise of Mo Ran coming, he looked up at him. I was given herbal ointment, Mo Ran said awkwardly. Chu Wanning said, did you really get bitten by a mosquito? Come here and let me take a look. Under the light, the color of Mo Ran's face was like honey. It was slightly dark, but it made his eyes look even more stunning. Chu Wanning stared at him for a while, then asked. Where were you bitten? I couldn't find the bite mark. Mo Ran scratched his head, feeling deeply embarrassed. My skin is thick. The bite mark disappeared a long time ago. As he spoke, he placed jars of herbal ointment on Chu Wanning's table. So, I don't need really these. Shizun should keep them for yourself. You're more likely to be bitten by mosquitoes than me. Chu Wanning did not comment. He only said, first, it's ointment for bruises and now it's a herbal ointment. If this continues, I might as well open a pharmacy. Mo Ran rubbed his handsome nose and laughed. His laugh was very reserved and very honest. Chu Wanning saw this and reached out to poke his forehead. It's late. Go back to your room and sleep. Shizun, sweet dreams. Good night. However, that night, in the small courtyard that was only 10 steps away from each other, the people lying in the 2 separate thatched cottages didn't get what they wished for each other. Neither of them was having a good night as they tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. Naturally, Chu Wanning was not one to say much. He felt that the soles of his feet were still numb. He could still feel the calluses on Moran's fingertips rubbing against him feet. Moran's thoughts were much more complicated. He tossed and turned, his head pillowed in the crook of his arm. He continuously pinched the seam of the bed. He repeatedly said in his heart, Shizun is like a deity, an immortal. He's noble and pure. He's above worldly affairs. No matter what happened in my previous life, I must never commit the same mistake in this life. I can't bully others, I can't mess around. Moreover, there was still Shimei. Right, he should think more about Shimei. He suddenly felt even more uncomfortable. The fact is, ever since he had returned to Shisheng Peak and seen Shimei again, he had always felt that he did not seem to have much enthusiasm for him anymore. Liking Shimei and protecting Shimei seemed to have become a habit that did not need to be thought about. He had been doing it all the time, but what happens after that? He felt closest to the Shimei of 5 years ago, but facing the handsome and charming man of 5 years later felt like facing a stranger. This unfamiliarity in his heart left him at a loss. He suddenly did not know what was wrong with him and what he should do. The next day, Chu Wanning woke up very early. When he walked outside, Moran coincidentally also lifted the curtain and had just come out. The two almost bumped into each other. Moran greeted, "Good morning, Shizun." "Good morning." Chu Wanning glanced at him and asked, "You didn't sleep well?" Moran forced a smile. "It's probably because I'm not used to the bed, but it's not a problem, Shizun. I'll be fine after resting for a bit at noontime." They went to the fields together. The early morning wind was filled with the sweet smell of grass and trees. It was quiet all around. Occasionally, they could hear the croaking of frogs and the clear cry of cicadas. Chu Wanning lazily yawned. Suddenly, he saw something and couldn't help but laugh. Moran. A hand reached over and brushed Moran's hair. Chu Wanning pulled a strand of straw from his hair and smiled faintly. "You were rolling around on the bed, weren't you? You've made a mess on your head." Moran was just about to explain when he suddenly saw a small piece of straw on Chu Wanning's hair. He couldn't help but laugh. Then Shizun must also be rolling around on the bed. As he said this, he helped Chu Wanning pick out a golden stalk of straw. As the sun rose from the east, master and disciple looked at each other amidst the splendor of the golden light that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. As before, one had his head slightly lowered and the other had his face slightly raised. Only 5 years ago, the one who had his head lowered was Chu Wanning and the one who had his head raised was Moran. This time, the situation has reversed. Mo Weiyu was no longer a youth. At this moment, time seemed to finally settle down. In the gentle morning light, Moran suddenly couldn't help but jump into the field. He opened his arms and smiled at the person on the ridge. "Here, Shizun, you can come down here. I'll catch you." Chu Wanning stared at the ridge that was only half the height of a person. "Are you mad? Ha ha ha." He took off his shoes and socks and lightly jumped into the paddy field. The water rippled, making the soles of his feet slightly cold. Chu Wanning waved his wide sleeves and majestically marked out a large piece of paddy field. "These are all mine. I didn't harvest as much as you did yesterday. Today, I'll make you admit defeat." Moran raised his outstretched arms and scratched his head. The corners of his mouth turned up and a particularly beautiful smile appeared on his face. "All right. If I lose, I'll make a lot of lotus pancakes for Shizun and lot of stewed crab meatball," Chu Wanning said, "and a lot of osmanthus candy. Deal? But then what if Shizun loses?" Moran's eyes sparkled like stars. "Then what?" Chu Wanning cast a sidelong glance at him and asked, "What do you want?" Moran pursed his lips and thought for a long time. Then, he said, "If Shizun loses, he'll have to eat a lot of lotus pancakes and stewed crab meatball. After a pause, an even gentler voice fell into the cool breeze. And a lot Osman thus candy. No matter who wins or loses, I want to treat you nicely. Chu Wanning had become good at harvesting work. He was a person who refused to admit defeat. It was one thing for others to laugh at him yesterday, but he couldn't allow others to look down on him today. Thus, he hurriedly applied himself to the task and buried himself in the rustling of the paddy field. By noon, he had already harvested much more paddy than Mo ran. Sitting under the mulberry tree to eat, he was somewhat proud. Although he didn't say anything and his face didn't show it, his eyes would constantly dart around the paddy field that he had harvested and on the rice stalks that were stacked high into a mountain of gold. Ling Er, go get another bowl of rice for Master Mo. Everyone was sitting in a circle. The ant saw that Mo Ran was eating very quickly and in a short while, the bowl was empty and thus she hurriedly said this. Mo Ran put down his bowl and chopsticks. He seemed to be very restless and said with a smile, "There's no need, I'm full. I have something to do, so I have to leave the village first. I'll be back later. Please continue eating." Ling Er was very surprised, and immediately showed some uneasiness. "But Master Mo only ate so little? Is the food not to your taste? If you don't like it, I can make another dish for you." "Oh no. It's not that. The food is fine." Mo Ran naturally couldn't see through the girl's thoughts. He smiled and waved his hand, and strode in the direction of the stable. Chu Wanning asked him, "Where are you going?" Mo Ran turned half of his face to his Shizun and smiled. "I'm going to buy some things. I'll be back soon." "But Master Mo." "It's all right. Let him do what he wants," Chu Wanning said lightly as he picked up a piece of fried tofu. Although these two cultivators came together, anyone with a discerning eye could tell whose status was higher and whose status was lower and thus whose words carried more weight. Moreover, Chu Wanning's natural appearance was somewhat strict and formal. Since he had already spoken, the villagers didn't ask any more questions and let Mo Ran do as he pleased. After the meal, everyone gathered in groups of 3 to 5. They were either chewing tobacco leaves in the field or taking a nap and basking in the sun with their eyes closed. The village women gathered together to weave clothes to keep out the cold. The children rode on bamboo horses and played. A very thin house cat sniffed the ground expectantly. The tip of its pink nose twitched and its ears perked up. It wanted to find something to eat among the cold leftovers. Chu Wanning held a cup of hot tea and leaned against a pile of grain to rest. Seeing that the cat was so thin and pitiful, he waved at it, wanting to give it something to eat. Unfortunately, it was very wary of strangers. When it saw Chu Wanning raise his hand, it thought that he was going to hit it, so it ran away with a swish. Chu Wanning was speechless. Did he look that fierce that even cats get scared of him? While he was thinking gloomily, he suddenly heard the sound of copper rings clinking. Ling Er happily held a cup of tea and sat next to Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning turned to look at her without showing much emotion on his face. This girl was very pretty. What was even rarer was that she wasn't thin and weak. She was a plump woman that was hard to come by in the remote countryside village. She also knew how to dress herself. She didn't seem to have extra money to buy accessories, so she picked up some fine pieces of copper and iron, washed them, grinded them into rings and strung them on the hem of her clothes. When she walked, they jingled and shone brightly under the sun. "Cultivation master," she called him crisply, her voice like ripe berries. Chu Wanning asked, "What's is it?" His voice was like cold smoke. Ling Er was slightly stunned by his unfriendliness, but then she put on a false front and said with a smile, "It's nothing. I just saw that you were sitting alone and thought that you might be feeling bored, so I came up to talk to you." Chu Wanning didn't think that he had an amiable face. The cat's reaction was probably the best proof of it. But then, humans and cats were different after all. Cats didn't know how to scheme, but humans might have other motives. Sure enough, after Lingayer said a bunch of nonsense to him, she seemed to ask casually, "Cultivation Master, what kind of people were you for to be disciples at Shi Shengpeak? Do you think I might have a chance?" Chu Wanning replied, "Give me your hand." Ah! She opened her eyes wide and then did as she was told excitedly. Chu Wanning put his fingertips on her pulse. After a while, he withdrew his hand and said, "No, you won't be accepted." Lingayer's face suddenly turned red. "Is it because I did not have the aptitude to build a spiritual core? When I asked you to give me your hand, you knew that I wanted to test your spiritual core. Then it means you have already asked other people before, right?" Chu Wanning continued, "Miss, it is not in your fate to be a cultivator. I'm afraid that you won't be able to build a core foundation even when you get older. Staying in the mountain is just a waste of time. It's better to give up on this idea." Lingayer didn't say anything. She lowered her head, looking very disappointed. After a while, she moved her lips and said in a low voice, "Many thanks to the cultivation master for your guidance." "You're welcome." She walked away silently. Chu Wanning looked at her back, feeling a bit complicated. For many people in the lower cultivation world, they were many who were more than eager to be a member of the cultivation world. Unlike the people in the upper cultivation world where joining a cultivation sect was a matter of honor and glory, for people in the lower cultivation world, joining a cultivation sect meant getting a way to protect and save their lives as well as their families. Chu Wanning leaned against a pile of grains and drank another mouthful of tea. The weather had turned cold. Since he hadn't drunk from his cup for a while, he found that his tea had gone cold. He drank another 2 or 3 mouthfuls anyways and closed his eyes, wanting to take a nap. However, he slept too late the night before and had been busy all morning, so he fell into a deep sleep. In the blink of an eye, more than half a day had passed. When he woke up again, the sky was already red. Crows were cawing on the treetops and there were only neat stalks of rice and falling grains left between the ridges of the fields. Chu Wanning was shocked and suddenly opened his eyes wide. He actually slept until dusk. Probably because of his status, the villagers were probably too embarrassed to wake him up. Not only did they not wake him up, they even covered him in robes to keep him from getting cold. Robes. Chu Wanning wanted to sit up, but a familiar scent suddenly came to the tip of his nose. He came back to his senses and looked down at the robe. The material was very coarse but it was very clean. There was a sweet smell of honey lingering between the stitches. It was Moran's robe. He didn't know why, but after realizing this fact, Chu Wanning gave up on sitting up. He relaxed his back and lay down again. Half of his face was hidden under the robe, only revealing a pair of clear bright eyes. They were slightly squinting, hiding an indescribable emotion. "This is crazy." He narrowed his thin and soft eyelashes, looking for that person in the fields. He quickly found him. After all, now that Moran had become so handsome and tall, he would be very eye-catching wherever he stood. That young man was helping the village chief and the others to carry the cut rice stalks to the ox cart. His back was facing Chu Wanning. Probably because he felt a little hot after working for an entire day, he, just like the other farmers, took off his outer robes and upper garments, revealing his strong, honey-colored back. Under the hot sunset, his broad back was suffused with heat, sweat slowly trickled down the lines of his rippling muscles, flowing to his waist and winding down to his tight waistline. He was like hot iron, like the coal in the furnace, burning all the tender and sweet sentiments into steaming sensual desire. Chu Wanning watched from the distance as all other sights gradually faded away in his eyes. All that was left was that person's bright skin, his smooth muscles that was similar to that of a jaguar and half of his face that was turned away when he was chatting with the village chief. His dimples were visible and his gaze was kind. He looked handsome and charming. As if he felt the gaze behind him, Moran turned his head. Chu Wanning quickly closed his eyes and pretended to be still asleep. His heart was beating like a torrential rain and his ears were filled with the rumbling sound of blood. After a long while, he quietly opened a slit and peered out from under the curtain of his eyelashes. Moran had already turned around. Ling Er walked over to him from the ridge and was bashfully holding out a handkerchief towards him. "Master Mo, you should wipe away your sweat." Moran was carrying a pile of straw to the ox cart. Hearing this, he smiled and said, "I'm too busy at the moment. I'll do it in a while." Ling Er seemed very happy to hear that. She stood beside him and watched, occasionally reaching out to give him a hand. Moran was surprised by this girl's enthusiasm and told her, "Thank you." That got her even more delighted. The tall and sturdy man beside her exuded a masculine charm that was within reach. She heard his breathing and looked at his relaxed shoulders. She couldn't help but blush. For a moment, she forgot that men and women shouldn't touch each other. Holding the handkerchief, she said softly, "Master Mo, if you don't wipe your sweat, it will drip down into your eyes." Moran hurriedly said, "I can't. My hands are full. I'll wipe it for you." Before she could even finish speaking, she felt a chill on her back. Chu Wanning had unknowingly appeared behind them. He still had Moran's thick black robe draped over his shoulders. His brows were furrowed, and there was a hint of viciousness that came from just waking up. He said, "Moran." "Huh." The person who was busy just now immediately put down the rice and rubbed the tip of his nose. The moment he saw Chu Wanning, he smiled. "Shizun is finally awake." Chu Wanning looked him up and down and asked, "Aren't you feeling cold?" Moran smiled and said, "Actually, I feel hot." As soon as he finished speaking, the bead of sweat between his dark eyebrows dripped down. In a moment of carelessness, it dripped into his eyes. He squinted one eye and used the other to look at Chu Wanning with a bright and persistent gaze. Of course, he was embarrassed to ask a girl for a handkerchief. He looked at Chu Wanning. "Shizun, my eyes. I had washed my handkerchief." Ling Er saw this and hurriedly said, "Then use mine." Chu Wanning ignored her and went straight forward. His expression was indifferent, but he leaned over and raised his head. Lifting his white sleeve, he gripped it and carefully wiped Moran's eyebrows. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 139. "Shizun, sleep well." Moran froze in an instant. His nose was filled with the familiar scent of hatang flowers. Although Chu Wanning did not have much of an expression, the cuff of his sleeve that fell on his eyelids was very gentle as he wiped Moran's brows very carefully. However, the most important thing was that this man in snow-white clothes was standing so close to him at this moment. He could even clearly see the extremely fine lines on Chu Wanning's lips. If he lowered his head a little more, he could easily kiss those lips and hold those soft and tender buds between his lips and teeth. "It's your win, but since you didn't wake me up, it's an unfair win," Chu Wanning suddenly said after wiping the sweat between his eyebrows. Moran was stunned for a while and then he smiled. "I didn't win, the person who won was Shizun. You didn't harvest any more in the afternoon." "No, there wasn't much time left. I went to the market to buy some items for winter supplies and then, I went from house to house in the village which took some time." Moran said, "So, Shizun still harvested more rice than me." Chu Wanning hummed in a light and satisfied voice. After a while, he asked, "What did you buy in the market?" "Mattresses." Before Moran had time to reply, Ling Er, who was standing next to him, did not want to be left out and interrupted with a smile, "Master Mo bought a lot of things that the poor horse pulling the cart almost died of exhaustion. It's not that much, just coals, some meat and some sweets. It's definitely a lot more than that. Master Mo also bought mattress for each family. It was so many that the old cotton lady just came with him back to the village as he brought around a cart that was filled to the brim. Chu Wanning was a little surprised by this and asked, "Where did you get so much money?" "I have some saved it up," Mo Ran said with a smile. "Also, those mattresses are not that expensive. In fact, they are much cheaper than those in the upper cultivation world." "Then what about the meat?" "I just thought to buy it. I had asked the village chief take it and cook it for everyone to eat tomorrow." Chu Wanning's expression didn't change as he asked, "And the sweets?" Ling Er clapped her hands and said with a smile, "Of course it's for the children in the village. Master Mo gave it to them as soon as he came back. There are malt candies and osmanthus cakes. Many of the girls and boys in our village have never eaten these sweets before. They are so happy." She paused for a moment and said sweetly, "I got one too." This girl was the type of person who knew how to cause trouble by trying to act familiar with others. This is evident by how much times she had inserted herself in the conversation, but Chu Wanning didn't mind the earlier instances, but he had enough of it. As soon as she finished speaking, he turned his eyes and glanced at her coldly. With a scornful expression he asked, "Is it delicious?" Ling Er answered without hesitation, "It's very delicious. It's so sweet." Chu Wanning seemed to be sneering, "Then you should eat some more." After he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and left. Mo Ran didn't know what he did that make him unhappy, but just as he was about to chase after him, his vision suddenly turned black. Chu Wanning threw the robe he was wearing at his face. Mo Ran caught it, pulled down the robe and looked at him anxiously. "Shizun. You're practically naked, that it's ridiculous. Even if you're not cold, I feel cold just looking at you." Chu Wanning said sternly, "Put it on." Although Mo Ran was feeling hot, he immediately put the robes on without saying a word since Chu Wanning had told him to. It was a little uncomfortable though, as sweat started to stick onto the fabric. He raised his fluttering eyelashes and looked at the other person blankly. Chu Wanning frowned and said, "Pull down your leaves. Why are you showing off your biceps? It's unruly." Mo Ran immediately straightened his robe. The collar was folded very high and it was very tight. Now, not even an inch of skin was exposed, but it added a kind of ascetic beauty to him. When Chu Wanning saw this, he inexplicably became more resentful. He cursed under his breath and left, leaving Mo Ran standing there like a silly dog. The village chief, his wife, and Ling Er, who were watching at the side, were confused. Ling Er said with some sympathy, "This cultivator is so fierce. I've never seen someone with such a strange temper." She said softly with some pity, even ingratiatingly, "Your Shizun really doesn't treat you well. It's a testament to how gentle is your temperament that you can endure." She turned around as she muttered, but suddenly met Mo Ran's gaze. Her words were instantly cut off from his lips and it seemed she couldn't utter another word. This was because she saw that the always smiling and amiable face of Master Mo suddenly became sullen, his eyes had a glint likened to a wolf's fang. She immediately shut her mouth, but Mo Ran immediately turned his face away. The light changed, and the color of his eyes was no longer easily discernible. Ling Er's heart was pounding. She didn't know if it was just her imagination, or this man who was as steady as a mountain in front of her suddenly revealed another fierce face. Mo Ran said in a muffled voice, "I'm sorry but I have to leave. I'm worried about him, so I'll go and check on him." As he said this, he walked away with large strides. Chu Wanning stood by the riverbank. The sky was filled with flying reed and reed flowers. The setting sun was half immersed in the sparkling waves as the river seemed to be burning with a raging fire. Mo Ran seemed panicked as he ran in a hurry. When he stopped behind him, he was panting slightly, "Shizun. Did I do something wrong?" Chu Wanning replied, "No." "Then why are you upset?" "What would I be upset about?" Mo Ran stared blankly, "What?" Chu Wanning turned around and said gloomily, "Fine, I'm upset." Mo Ran. Moran didn't intend to talk to Chu Wanning in a roundabout manner, so he carefully looked at Chu Wanning's face and suddenly thought of something. That thought seemed to have made him smile as he said, "I think I know what's making Shizun unhappy." Chu Wanning's hands were tightly clenched in his wide sleeves while his shoulders moved slightly, however his face remained calm. "I said I'm not." Moran had already walked over and stood under the tree, smiling with his hands behind his back. The old banyan tree by the river had some thick veins exposed on the ground, like strong blood vessels that slowly pierced deep into the soil. He stood on the protruding veins, which made him look even taller. Chu Wanning was alarmed, but at the same time, he felt displeased and said, "Get down here." "Oh." Moran lightly and nimbly jumped, the tips of his feet leaving the protruding tree boil, and landed in front of Chu Wanning. This tree coiled up like a crouching dragon, and there were only a few places without thick roots. So, Moran could only stand very closely to Chu Wanning if he is to avoid the high ground. He lowered his head, his breath could almost brush Chu Wanning's eyelashes. Chu Wanning got a bit embarrassed and said with a sullen face, "You can get back up there." Moran couldn't help but laugh. "First I have to go down, then I have to go up. Is Shizun playing with me?" Chu Wanning also knew that he was messing around in a fit of temper, so after being exposed, he simply kept silent and kept sulking. Moran reached out from behind his back, and pulled out a handful of sweets from who knows where. He held them within his palm. They were wrapped in rice paper and piled up into a little mountain of colorful sweets. "Shizun didn't need to be angry, I kept some for you." Chu Wanning was so furious he could vomit blood. He raised his eyebrows and shouted, "Mo Wei-yu. Here." Moran hurriedly stood up straight. "Who wants to eat sweets? What do you think I am? A 3 years old? Or do you think I'm a girl? I don't even, MMPH. A piece of candy was brought to his lips and put inside his mouth. Chu Wanning was stunned. In a split second, not only did the tips of his ears turn red, but his face has complete turned crimson. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know whether it was out of shame or anger, but his pair of phoenix eyes widened as he stared at the smiling man in front of him with both shock and indignation. "It's made of cow's milk." Moran said, "You like that flavor the most, right?" Chu Wanning was suddenly rendered speechless and powerless. He was like a cat whose claws had been cut off. His threatening gestures had become completely useless. He was sucking on the milk-flavored candy. Because he had just walked in a hurry, a small tuft of hair at the corner of his forehead was slightly curled up in the wind, trembling softly like a blade of grass. When Moran saw this, he felt a strong impulse in his heart. He wanted to reach out and press down that strand of hair. And, he has always been a man of action. With the thought in his mind, he really extended out his hand to obey that impulse. Chu Wanning was speechless. Moran smiled and said, "I bought some sweets and snacks for everyone in the village, but the ones I bought for Shizun were the best. I secretly hid the best sweets in my sleeves. The pastries are in your room, so when you go back in the evening, you can eat them quietly. Don't let the little ones see them. They're lotus cakes and look very beautiful and tasty. If they see them, they will definitely pester you to give them some." Chu Wanning continued to be quiet. After a long time, he used the tip of his tongue to roll up the melted milk candy. Then he raised his eyes and looked at the man in front of him under the old banyan tree amidst the flying reeds. After a long time, he threw out the following words without warning, "What about the Osmanthus candies?" Moran smiled, "I bought it. Crab meatballs. I got them, too." Chu Wanning tilted his head. He felt that his dignity had fallen a little today. He wanted to pick up his dignity and dust it off, so he deliberately straightened his posture and raised his chin slightly. "Too bad, it's pear blossom white that I actually want." He probably thought that the way he raised his chin was very serious and oppressive. However, that was in the past. limited only to the young Moran who hasn't grown as tall as his Shizun yet. Chu Wanning didn't know that when he did this now, he was only showing Moran the soft lines of his chin, exposed the jut on his throat and his white porcelain neck. He was like a cat who thought highly of himself, showing off the most vulnerable part of his body under the lips of a wolfhound, but he was unaware of the dangers of this pride. Though he was intimidating the wolf, not knowing that what he's done was actually to entice the wolf to kiss his chin, lick his throat, bite his neck and swallow him whole. What an idiot. Moran used a lot of willpower to move his gaze away from Chu Wanning's chin. When he looked at the person in front of him again, his eyes were a little dark, his voice was a little low. He forced a smile, acting like a gentleman as he said, "I have some." Chu Wanning was slow to react and frowned, then asked, "What?" "Pear blossom white." Moran calmly exhaled a breath, suppressing the desire in his heart as he a hoarse voice, "Pear blossom white, I have some, too." Chu Wanning. "I thought Shizun might want to drink sometime while we were away from the section." Moran said, "Fortunately, I bought some of it." Chu Wanning stared at the disciple in front of him who was trying his best to curry favor with him. He suddenly found himself lost for words. Then it came to his mind that it was meaningless to make things difficult for him. There's also not much sense to pretend to be cold and indifferent. He slowly relaxed his tense body and leaned his back against the old banyan tree. He sized up Moran and then said, "Moran." "Yes, Shizun. You've changed a lot." After uttering these words, he didn't know why, but he saw what seemed to be a trace of unease in Moran's eyes. Then, Moran's thick and long eyelashes fluttered as he said, "Then, does Shizun like it?" Chu Wanning said, "I don't dislike it." Then, as if he suddenly thought of something, he stood up straight and raised his finger. He hesitated in midair, but still put it on Moran's waist. The touch made Moran's body trembled. He didn't understand what is this about, and so, he looked on at Chu Wanning with a great deal of unease. "I read in a book that you had a fierce battle with the drought demon of Yellow River." Chu Wanning said, "It said you were injured here. Is that right?" "Yes." Chu Wanning let out an almost imperceptible sigh and patted Moran's shoulder. "I can tell that you had been doing very well, that nowadays you are even being referred to as Grandmaster Mo." "This disciple wouldn't dare," Moran immediately replied. Chu Wanning smiled slightly and poked Moran's forehead with the tip of his finger, then lowered his hands. "That's right. How can you dare when you had been running around all day in disheveled clothes? You really don't look like a grandmaster at all. The sun is already setting. Let's go back and rest early." "What are we doing tomorrow?" Moran thought for a while, then said, "I think we need to prepare the rice for making rice cakes for the New Year celebration." Chu Wanning nodded, then suddenly said, "Don't take off your clothes randomly again." Moran blushed, "Yes, Shizun. If it's hot, then take a break." "All right." Chu Wanning thought for a while, then added, "Also, remember to bring a handkerchief with you. Don't hang out with unmarried girls for no reason." "Do you have a handkerchief?" "No." Moran answered, feeling awkward. "Then what do you usually use to wipe your face?" "I use my sleeves." Moran felt even more embarrassed by his own coarseness. Chu Wanning was a little speechless. After a while, he said, "I'll make and embroidered a handkerchief for you then." Moran's eyes lit up. "Really? You'll make a handkerchief for me?" "Yes." Moran was overjoyed. "That's great. When will Shizun going to make it?" Chu Wanning frowned. "It will have to wait until we're done with this job." Then I want it to be embroidered with hatang flower, if possible. "I'll try my best." Having received such a promise, Moran was feeling elated for the whole night. He was immersed in the joy of exchanging sweets for a handkerchief. Covered with a new quilt, he was so happy and rolled on the bed giddily, unable to fall asleep. For the past 5 years, Moran felt as if he had been in a drunken stupor. For the first time, he felt so happy that he couldn't sleep. His heart was beating very fast. He found that he couldn't calm himself down. Finally, he sat up on his bed and looked at the window facing Chu Wanning's room. He laid on his stomach in the edge of the bed. From the slight gap in the window, he could smell the sweet scent of the night by the countryside. Across the small courtyard in front of him, he could see the yellow light of the candle in Chu Wanning's room. It seems that his Shizun was still awake. He wondered what he was doing. Was he busy planning how to do his handkerchief? Or perhaps, he was enjoying the lotus pancake that he brought for him. Mo Ran stared at the warm yellow light shining through the gap of the window for a long time. When the light went out and Chu Wanning seemed to be going to sleep, he couldn't help but whispered, "Chu Wanning, Chu Wanning. Shizun, sleep well." There was another sentence that was buried deep within his heart. Even if there was nobody around who could hear it, he wouldn't dare to say it out loud. Chu Wanning. Sweet dream. End chapter.